All right, so this quiz is really was just designed just to kind of give you an introduction to the importance of um, taking the information we learned in a previous class, and we're going to build upon that as we go throughout the semester. Okay, and so obviously we know the four types of math we're going to use: multiplication, addition, subtraction, and division. Okay, I don't think anybody really got that one wrong. The triangle shape, okay, it's divided into three parts, one section on the top and two on the bottom. The top section represents what?
Cost.
Cost. Remember, what is that formula for percentage? Part over the whole, right? And so the cost is the part of how much it costs us to make it. That's the menu selling price. That's the whole, that's the bottom. So you can kind of think of it that way as well. So cost is on the top. The horizontal line that goes across from the top to the bottom is the
Division.
division. So remember, you can kind of think about, let's see, where's my annotate? With that division line, it has that automatic horizontal line anyways. So that horizontal line is division. All right. Letter A represents the cost percentage or menu price, right? Because those are interchangeable on the bottom. Why? Because question number 6, that vertical line represents
Multiplication, and it goes either way.
exactly good. Okay. Number 7, letter B represents the cost. And then the last two questions, the formula. So remember, when we're doing the formula, we're going to cover up what we're looking for. And so what is the formula to calculate the food cost percentage? We cover that up. And what's left over? Cost divided by the selling price. And then the formula for the food cost, we cover that up. And what's left over? Percent times the sales. Okay. So what I would recommend as we're going through, if we ever have questions like this, in the margin, go ahead and draw your triangle. And then if it's asking for a food cost percentage, take your pencil and scratch that out. And then you know it's cost divided by sales. Okay. Until you get to a point that you can do it in your head, go ahead and draw it out in the margin or on your paper. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about this? All right. We are going to go through chapters 1 and chapters 2 today. Okay. So we're going to move relatively quickly through these slides. Okay. And through some of these examples. Again, remember, everything's being recorded. And so I will post the recording on Canvas. On top of that, you have the pre-recorded lectures. So some of this might look familiar, might sound familiar. So if you would like to, you have that semester or you have that in-class discussion notes page that you have available to you. You can use that and fill it out while you're watching the pre-recorded lectures. And then you can come in here to class and fill in the gaps of where you're missing, okay? So let's talk about chapter 1. The relationship between cost and profitability, okay? We talked last class that the formula for profit or loss is sales minus expenses. Expenses is just another way of saying all of our costs, okay? So what is the relationship between our cost and our profitability?
What was the question?
What is the relationship between the cost and how profitable we are?
The lower the cost is, the more profitable you are, at least in relation to your selling price.
Right. So if we can keep our costs lower, then our profit ideally would go up. Okay. Sales, this stays the same. If I bring in $1,000, then I only have $1,000 to subtract from. Okay. But if I can reduce my costs, then that means I get to keep more of that $1,000 in my pocket. Okay. On the flip side, if I don't keep my expenses under control, if my expenses go too high, then that means I might operate at a loss or my profit will be decreased. Okay. Questions about the profitability between cost and expenses? Or sorry, profitability and expenses and costs. All right. So calculate the profit or loss without even doing any math. Is this first question, is this going to be a profit or is it going to be a loss? Why?
Because the expenses are lower than the sales.
Our expenses are lower than the sales. That means we automatically know we have a profit. Okay. And so we'll do profit in green since that represents money. 25,000 minus 20,000 is equal to $5,000 profit. Okay. It's a positive number. It's profit. Second example, profit or loss? Loss, right? Because these expenses are more than, oops. These expenses are more than the sales. So we're going to have a negative $100. Okay, super simple. Just subtracting. It is key though that you have to subtract sales minus expenses. I know oftentimes as we're learning subtraction, they always teach us the bigger number goes on top, right? You're subtracting from that other number. But in this case, we have to do sales minus expenses because this represents real money and this represents real expenses. If you don't, if you just decide, I'm just going to put the bigger number on top, then you may be actually operating at a loss and not realizing it. Okay. So we have three different types of costs: fixed, variable, and semi-variable. Okay. Who thinks they know which graph is represented by the fixed costs?
Graph C.
I think I heard it online and here. Yes. Graph C. Why?
Because the costs are staying at the same cost for every single time it's been used.
Exactly. You see how our cost line, which is the gray, it stays the same. Doesn't move up and down. It stays flat. That means it doesn't matter if I have one person walk in my door or if I have 1,000 people walk in my door. I still have to pay the same amount of money in rent, so that's going to be fixed. We also have salaries as fixed costs. Doesn't matter if I have one person or 1,000. I still have to pay my manager the same amount of money for their salary. Okay. Variable cost. Which one represents variable costs? Let's say it out loud. Not B, it is A. Variable costs. You see how the distance between these graphs, these different points, is basically the same distance all the way? Okay, so variable means as our expenses, as our sales goes up, so does our expenses. So that's going to be like food, beverage, and wages. Wages are like our hourly employees, right? The busier we are, the more people we have to have on staff to service, to prepare the food, to wash the dishes, all that kind of stuff, right? So the busier we are, the more sales we're bringing in, it makes sense that our expenses are going to go up. We have to buy more food. We have to buy more ingredients, okay? But if our sales are going down, then so do our expenses. Our expenses should also go down. So with the variable costs, they move in that direct proportion, okay? That direct proportion. And by process of elimination, semi-variable is B, okay? So as you can see, as our sales go up, so do our costs. As our sales come back down, our costs do as well, but not in the same proportion, okay? And this one is what we include labor. So semi-variable includes labor, which is wages and salaries put together, right? So semi-variable has aspects of variable and also aspects of fixed costs. That's why it's semi-variable. Okay. Oops. So now we take those costs, fixed costs, variable, semi-variable. We put them into two categories, controllable and non-controllable. What is the definition of a controllable cost? What's the root word of controllable?
Control.
Control, which means we have control over it. Okay. In the short term, we have the control to change it. Okay. Or we have the control to impact it. So if we're really slow, am I going to keep all 9 servers on the floor? What am I going to do? I'm going to send some people home, right? If we're slow, how many can I get away with to manage the amount of the business, the volume of business, while still remaining profitable, right? We're going to decrease those costs and those expenses so that our profit can go up, okay? So
And then, of
controllable-
course, you'll get a rush.
Yes, ideally, you want to know what your patterns are. So you may know that, okay, yeah, we're really slow right now, but it's a football night. It's a football game night. So we know we're going to get a rush later on, okay? In that regard, you may decide rather than bringing everybody in at 5 o'clock, maybe you bring in a small group of people to manage 5 o'clock and then bring people in a little bit later to help manage that rush. So you can change your schedule around a little bit based on the volume of business that you're going to do. So yeah, that's a really good point. It's unpredictable. Sometimes we might get a rush. It depends. So I'll give you an example, real life example, happened this weekend. So on Sunday, I was up in Arlington, and basically every restaurant around the hotel was closed because it was snowing, right? And so people weren't going out to eat. And the restaurant in the hotel the night before, they were really dead all night long. And that's because our conference hadn't started yet. And so all of a sudden, Sunday night comes and our conference starts, and we get done with the reception upstairs, which had just like light bites, past appetizers. And then all of a sudden, we all went downstairs to the restaurant because it was the only restaurant open. They were getting ready to close early, and we all just showed up. There's about 30 of us that showed up in order to eat dinner that night, right? So that was a good example of an unexpected rush. They were able to manage it well, okay? So food, beverages, and wages. Also, think about this, these are your variable costs. So your controllable are those variables. We're going to talk about ordering inventory. We're going to talk about purchasing in a future chapter. If we know we're going to be really busy, we're going to order a lot of food. If we know it's a downtime, then we probably aren't going to order as much. Okay? It's really important for you to know what's happening in your city, especially if you're in the downtown area. If we're hosting an event in San Antonio and there's 40,000 people who are Alcoholics Anonymous, are we going to stock up on our bars that week? Probably not, right? But if we have a teachers convention, are we going to stock up on our bars? Yes, because teachers like to drink for whatever reason. Okay. I don't know what it is. I go to some teachers conferences and I'm like, have y'all ever been inside a bar before? Like, this is so crazy. Sometimes but people do at conferences are not what they normally do in their daily lives. But so knowing what groups are in town for conferences, if you're near the convention center, okay, knowing the season, knowing when certain days, certain holidays, like if Valentine's Day falls on a Friday or Saturday, your volume of business may be a little bit different than if it fell on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Okay. So all those things are different things you have to take in consideration. Your non-controllable costs, those are your fixed. Okay. I can't control how much I pay in rent in the short term. Okay. When my lease is done, if I decide I don't want to be here anymore because I pay too much money, then yeah, I can move. But I can't just pick up tomorrow and say I'm not gonna have my restaurant here. I need to move somewhere else. Okay. So in the short term, that non-controllable costs are those fixed costs. Okay.
I've seen managers or management who like they compare to last year on
Yeah.
that date and everything.
Yep. And we're going to talk about that in chapter 2.
Okay.
So hold that. That's called forecasting. That's exactly what that process is called. Yeah. Good point. So prime cost. Prime cost is food, beverage, and labor. Okay. Prime cost is food, beverage, and labor. So all three aspects. And the reason why these are our prime costs is because these are the ones we have the most control over. These are the ones we have the most control over. So, food cost in the industry, on average, depending on what kind of restaurant you operate, on average, you're looking at a 30 to 33% food cost. Labor is anywhere from 30 to 35%. Okay. So let's take those highest averages. Okay. Eduardo, what's the total if we add 33 and 35 together? Close, add one more. 68. Okay. So if we add these two highest numbers together, we get 68%. Let's put that in terms of money. Okay. That means 68 cents of every $1 goes to cover those costs. Okay. So 68 cents of every dollar goes to cover our prime cost. So if we have $1 and we subtract 68 cents, what do we get?
32.
32 cents. That means 32 cents of every dollar that I bring into my restaurant has to cover my rent, my salaries, my insurance, my maintenance, all of that. And then at the very bottom, I get to my profit. Okay. And hopefully I have some money left over so I have a profit and I don't operate at a loss. Okay. So what we're going to talk about in this class throughout the semester is different ways we can control our costs, right? If I can bring this down by 1%, that basically means I get to save 1 penny. 1 penny in my costs. And you're like, Mr. Uminski, that's not a big deal. 1 penny. 1 penny is not a huge deal. Okay. But If we take 1 penny and we do $3 million in sales that year, that's an extra $30,000. What could you do with an extra $30,000 to help and put back into your business? Maybe help your employees. Maybe take your employees to, maybe you have an Italian restaurant, you take all your employees on a trip to Italy so they can learn actually how to make pasta in Italy. Okay, and then make your restaurant even better. So if we can control our costs, that allows us to invest more into our employees, into our business, okay, or maybe even into yourself. So as we calculate our food cost percentage, what tool are we going to use? The triangle. Oops. Okay. Cost, percent, sales, division, and multiplication. Okay. Calculating that food cost percentage. So if I can bring my food cost percentage down just a little bit, right, I can save money. Who remembers what ingredient I talked about on the pre-recorded videos about saving money? The lemon wedges, right? Who does not know what I'm talking about when I talk about lemon wedges and how we can save money? Okay. How many of you like lemon with your tea? How many of you do not like lemon with your tea?
Me, I don't like tea though.
You don't like tea? Okay, that's fine.
I don't like it with water either though.
Okay, yeah, so you don't like lemon at all with water. If we have a standard operating procedure, if we have a standard operating, when someone orders tea or water, we put a lemon wedge on there. Okay? If we do that every single time, that lemon wedge costs us money. Okay? Let's say that lemon wedge costs us, I don't know, let's say it costs us 5 cents. Okay? So that one lemon wedge. And let's say, like, raise your hand again if you like lemon. If you like lemon. You guys online? I know, Ray, you don't. Okay, Jake and Christina, you both like lemons. That's 2. Keep your hands up. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we have 5 out of Ray is 1. I'm 2. Oh, actually, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 5 out of 12 people. What is 5 divided by 12? Who can give me that
40%.
40%?
41.
0.41? Okay. So that's 41% of the people like lemons. Okay. That means the other 59 don't like lemons. So let's say we serve 300 people per day. And we're going to multiply that by 0.59. That's the percentage of people that do not like lemons. Okay, what's that number? 177. You guys following me so far? That's 177 lemon wedges that just end up in the trash because the people don't like it. Okay, now multiply that by our 5 cents per wedge. And what do we get? This is a dollar amount.
$8.85.
$8.85. Now, last step, multiply that by 360 days because we're closed for 5 days of the year. 885 times 360 is
886.
3,886 on a lemon wedge. Almost $4,000.
It's 3,186.
186. Okay, thank you. Still $3,000 on a lemon wedge. And if we just change our policy to have our servers say, would you like lemon with your tea? Would you like lemon with your tea? At 2.5 seconds could potentially lead to $3,000 in savings. And that's one ingredient. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about in this class. What are some other cost savings ideas that you can think about? Olives. What do you mean by olives?
There was a what do you call it? One of the airliners, one of the CEOs was like, "Oh, hey, only like 3 out of 10 people like the olives. Get rid of them and save them a bunch."
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. What else? What are some cost savings ideas? Obviously, okay, we're talking about like taking away an ingredient, but what are some other things you can do to maybe reuse or get the maximum use out of an ingredient? What do you think?
Syrups.
What do you mean by syrups?
If you're going to what do you call it? Gonna assess the lemon or you're gonna otherwise juice it, you're gonna have a bunch of rinds left over. You can infuse that with some sugar water, just make a citrus infused syrup. You
Okay,
can use it
yeah,
with bartending or some other desserts.
cool. So you can
That's
take
a good part.
those lemon rinds, right? And you can maybe infuse something with it. Good. What else?
You can just use like the lemon juice in like a different dish.
Okay,
Just implement it to that.
cool. Let's move off the citrus track. Let's move on to a different thought process.
When you shave off the top of the cake, you can use like the shavings for like a cake pop or something.
There you go, right? When you, as a baker, if you're shaving off the top of that cake to make it level, are you gonna throw that cake away? Keep all that stuff together, and then when you have enough, you can make cake pops out of it, right? And so we're not gonna throw that product away. We can maximize the use out of that. Good. What else? What other things can we reuse?
Imperfect
So you can buy meat bone in and debone it and then use the bones for stock.
Absolutely, right? You get a roasted chicken. When I was at the summer camp in Maine, on the first day, the parents were dropping the kids off, right? And so I would roast like 6 chickens because it made not only did it make my kitchen smell amazing, right? But then as I'm getting done, I'm shredding that chicken. So I'm going to make chicken salad throughout the week, or maybe I'm going to do chicken pot pies. Okay. And then I take those bones and throw them in some water. And now I have chicken stock for my soups, for my sauces, right? And that one chicken that was raw, those 6 chickens that were raw, I'm not just deboning them and throwing the carcass away. I'm actually using it to get the maximum usage out of it. Okay. Yeah. So think about those things as we go through. You have someone said imperfect loaves. Maybe what could you do with imperfect loaves of bread?
recycling the
You
crouton.
can make croutons,
Bread pudding.
bread pudding, right? So all those things are ways that, of course, you need to make sure that you're working within your sanitation and safety guidelines, right? Once you heat that soup up once, it's got to be thrown away. You can't cool it down again and serve it again, right? So you got to make sure you know that. Whatever the ingredient with the shortest shelf life is in your recipe, that's the shelf life of that recipe. Okay. So understanding those ideas can help you. All right. Now, we want to compare what we actually did to what our performance standard was. Okay. So our performance standard was we're changing it to only asking people for if they want lemons, right? So we can look at what our actual performance is compared to what we had our standard be. And so if our standard before was everyone gets a lemon, we can actually track what the difference is when we implement a new standard. Okay. When we implement that new standard, we're going to have a budget associated with it. Okay. And so when we do this, is what we call the variance. Variance is just a business way of saying the difference. The difference in what we wanted to have happen, which is our budget, compared to what actually happened. Okay. And so we have to do actual minus the budget. The way I remember this is just alphabetical order. Okay. Oops, I thought I changed colors. A minus B. We have to do actual minus budgeted. Because then that tells us if we were on target or if we were not on target. So let's take a look down here. We're looking at food sales. We're looking at money. Okay. Our actual is $90,000. Our budget, bless you. Our budget said we wanted to bring in $100,000 in sales. Bless you. So my difference is what? Negative $10,000. That means I did not meet my budget. My budget was $1,000. And my budget was $100,000. And I only brought in $90,000. Is that good or bad?
Depends on circumstance.
It depends, right? If my costs were super high, then that's not a good situation because my sales were low, my costs were up. But if my sales were low and I was a good manager, I was able to keep my costs low as well, then it's not ideal that we don't meet our budget in sales. But also, hey, by the way, I also controlled the cost in the expenses so that we didn't have a double whammy. Okay. The percentage, we're basically going to take this percentage of the variance and divide by what our budgeted was. So when we divide 10,000 by 100,000, we have a negative 10% difference. That means we're 10% off. Okay. It's a lot easier for us to look at percentages than it is to look at dollar amounts. Okay. Because this is a super easy, clean example, $10,000, right? But you might be working with millions of dollars in sales. And then you might have something like, some weird number that's not a whole number, a nice, even, easy number. And so sometimes it's easier just to go ahead and use that percentage. So let's do a couple other examples. So our actual sales of $2,700 or $275,000, we're going to subtract $250,000. And what is our difference? When we subtract that, we get $25,000. Okay, but in this case, it's a positive number, right? So in this case, when we do $25,000, which is our difference, this should say variance percentage. Sorry. Divide that by our budgeted of $250,000. That means I went over my budget by 10%. Okay. So maybe in this time, I got with my servers, I was like, okay, let's start selling appetizers and desserts. Let me train you how to upsell. Let me train you how to suggestively sell. And that's going to increase our sales. If we increase our sales, what does that do to our servers' income?
It depends on the restaurant.
Depends on the restaurant, but typically, how do people usually tip? By percentage, right? So 10, 15, 20%. And so if a server adds an appetizer, an entree, and dessert, then that means their check is higher, which then means somebody, if they're tipping by 10 or 15, 20%, that means their tip also goes up, right? So teaching our employees how to do that and the importance of doing that. The last couple of examples have been dollars, but we don't always just look at dollars, okay? What is a cover? What is the definition of a cover? What's that?
Oh, on the table.
Not a table, just one person.
Reservation.
Yeah, just one person. So we might have a 4 top, that's 4 covers at a table of 4. Okay, or we might have 5 covers. We might look at our reservations and say we have 200 reservations. We have 200 covers for tonight. Okay, so a cover is just a way of saying one person. So if we budgeted to have 750 covers, meaning we have enough staff to handle 750, but we actually only had 680. So again, 680, that's our actual, minus the 750. Let's put our units on here. We get what? How many? Negative 70. Okay. So negative 70, that's our difference. And then we divide by our budgeted of 750, our original number, and it's more or less 9%, 9 point something, right? 9.3%. Okay. And it's a negative since we are less. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns about how we are comparing our actual performance to our budgeted or what our performance standard was? All right. How we doing? 20 minutes. No, 25 minutes. Yes. I can do it. Chapter 2. All right. So chapter 2, we're going to do a little bit more math. Hopefully we should be able to get through this in 25 minutes. We're going to talk about budgeting. Okay. We're talking about budgeting here. How many of y'all have a budget? Anybody have a budget? I have one. I just don't stick to it. It's hard for me to stick to it. All right. Personally, it's really hard. But professionally, if I have a budget in a professional standpoint, I know where every single penny goes. I'm able to track that. Okay. So in our budget, we forecast, just like Ray mentioned a little earlier, we always look at what happened last year, or we look at what happened the last time a specific event happened to forecast, predict the future based on past events and past examples. Okay. Anybody know what happened in San Antonio in 2025? What's that? As far as like a major event that happened in San Antonio in 2025, that's not happening again this year.
Final Four?
The Final Four was here, right? So Final Four, NCAA men's basketball, Final Four was here in 2025, okay? So when we do our budget for 2026, can we compare the numbers for 25 to 26? No, because we don't have that event again, all right? So did we have that event in 2024 or 2023? We didn't. So when I start preparing for my budget for 2025, I have to look back all the way to 2018, the last time we had the Final Four, and say, okay, last time we had that, this is what happened. Of course, we're going to increase a little bit because we know hopefully we can increase our sales more, okay? Same thing, example I gave earlier with Valentine's Day. If it happens on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday, maybe my volume of business is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to plan differently, okay? When we forecast, we either go up or we go down. We increase or we decrease. And typically it's just by percentage, okay? That's the easiest way, is just to go up by a percentage. So if we want to increase by a percentage, you'll notice the first step in both of these, oops, why is my, there we go, is the same. We want to multiply by the original number by the percentage that's given, okay? If we're increasing, we're going to add that number to the original number. If we decrease, we're going to subtract from the original number, okay? So I'm going to show you a two-step process. If I want to increase by 3%, okay? If I want to increase by 3%, 2,000 and increase by 3%. What is 2,000 times 0.03?
60.
60? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 60 is my increase. 3% of 2,000 is 60. Now, if I want to increase it, I have to add to my 2,000. So I get 2,060. So if I had 2,000 guests this year and I want to increase by 3% for next year, my goal is to serve 2,060 people. Does that make sense? All right, try this bottom one. Increase by 2.5%. So 5,000, and we're going to increase by 2.5%.
Five.
125, do we all agree? Okay. So if I'm going to increase that by 2.5%, that means my new goal is 5,125. Okay, that's my new budget. That's my new goal. Okay. And I show y'all a one-step process. Okay, so I hope I don't confuse you with this. If I do, just turn your brain off for a second. Okay. What is 100% as a decimal? Right? We move that decimal place over too. So that's 100% as a decimal. Do we all agree? Cool. So what is 2,000 times 1?
2,000.
Equals 2,000. I added these two numbers. So if I add these two, I get 1.03. You guys see me so far? The 1 and the 3, that's 1.03. If I multiply 2,000 times 1.03, it will automatically give me 2,060. Because the 1's going to multiply by 2,000, and the 0.03 is going to multiply by 2,000, give you the 60, and your calculator will give you the answer of 2,060. Okay? So that's a one-step process, right? And I say one step because can you add 103 together in your head? It's 103. And then move that decimal place over 2. And that's where you get the 1.03. So you just multiply that by the original number. Now, if you need the two-step process, do the two-step process. Okay? By all means, do the two-step process. I'm okay with that. Let's talk about subtraction and decreasing. Okay? Remember, the first step is still the same. The first step is still the same. So 15,000 times 0.05 is what? What is 5% of 15,000?
750.
150? Okay. Sorry, say it again.
700.
750. Thank you. Do we all agree? 750? Now, because we're decreasing, what are we going to do? We have to subtract from that original number. Okay. And so by doing that, we get 14,250. 50. 14,250. Okay. Decreasing by 0.015, decreasing by 0.15 from 1,200 people. So what is the decrease of 1,200 times 0.15?
18.
18, thank you. And so we subtract those two numbers. 1182. Okay. All right, this year. So think about it this way. The conference that I went to this last weekend, they had over 350 people register. But because of flight cancellations and weather, they had about 150 people not show up or not able to get to the conference. So now that hotel, rather than cook food for 350 people, that hotel can say, you know what? We know that 150 haven't showed up, so we're only going to prepare about this much of food. Okay. And so we can really kind of make sure that we are decreasing the amount that we are producing. The one-step process applies here. Okay. What is 100? Remember 100%. We're going to decrease by 5. What's 100 minus 5? 95. Move that decimal place over 2. And we do 15,000 times 0.95. And we're going to have 14,250. So when we decrease by a percentage, we can just subtract from 100, turn that into a decimal, and multiply by that. Okay? Our income statements. This is also known as a profit and loss statement, a P&L statement. Okay? This is also known as a P&L, profit and loss statement. Okay? Sales is money. It is always at the top. Sales is always at the top because that's what we have to subtract everything else from. Okay? And sales always equals 100%. Sales always equals 100%. Okay? All of this, our expenses plus our profit, also equals 100%. Okay? Let me show it to you horizontally. Profit is equal to sales. I'll use the same terminology. Sales minus expenses. You guys follow me so far? Profit equals sales minus expenses. All right, we're going to do something really hard. It's called algebra. Okay, we're using algebra. If we want to get sales by itself, we have to add expenses, right? And so which means to do it to the other side as well. So our expenses plus our profit has to equal our sales. Those numbers have to equal each other. Okay? So that is why if sales is equal to 100%, then profit and expenses is also equal to 100%. They equal each other. Does that make sense? It'll make sense here in just a second. I'm going to connect the dots. All right, so sales always goes first. Then we have our food and beverage. Those are our most controllable. Those go second. Okay. Then we have labor, other expenses is like rent, our Spotify subscription, our insurance, all of our different things that we have to cover. And then the bottom line is our profit. Okay. How many of you ever heard of someone who is only focusing on the bottom line. A manager only focuses on the bottom line. This is what they're referring to. They're looking at that number and that number only. That's the first thing they look at. If it's positive, great, we have a profit. If it's negative, it's a loss. Okay? It's the bottom line of a P&L. So if I give you a formula here and I ask, what is my labor budget? What is my labor budget? If I'm asking for a budget, I'm asking for a dollar amount, right? Do I have any dollars amounts up here? No. I have percentages, right? If all of these equals 100%, how much is our labor cost percentage? So 25 plus 15 is what? 40. 25 plus 15 is 40. Plus 21, 61 plus 11, 72, right? So if we subtract 72, we get 28. So that means my labor is 28%. You see how I figured that out? Now, using my triangle, cost, percent, sales. If I'm looking for labor costs, which one do I cover up on the triangle? I'm looking for the cost, right? I have my percentage, 28%. I have my sales, $3 million. Get my commas in there. So that tells me my budget for labor of 0.28 times 3 million. My budget for labor is $840,000. They put it over here. So when your manager is like, hurry up and clock out, because they have a budget they have to go for. They don't want to go over their budget. So like, hurry up and clock out. Okay, don't waste your time walking over to the computer and take your time to clock out. I need you to clock out right when your shift is over, okay? Or things like overtime. I want to take that overtime into consideration because that eats up into that budget even more, okay? So last one, let's do this one right over here. We'll do it as a group. What is my profit percentage? What is my profit percentage?
10%.
10%, right? 28 plus 10 is 38, plus 32, 60, no, 70, 28, 38, 40, 70, 90, 10%. Okay? And what's 10% of $100,000? $10,000. Remember, we have that one zero, so cross off a zero. We've got $10,000. So I bring in $100,000, but I'm only taking home $10,000 for my profit. Okay? If I can decrease this to 30, that's 2%. Okay? If I can decrease my food cost to 26, now I've got 14%. So now I've got $14,000. Okay? Just by figuring out, okay, our beverages are so expensive because we're giving out lemons too much. Okay? Or maybe we need to reevaluate the expense and the cost of our ingredients. Maybe on our food cost, we factor in 2 ounces of salad dressing for a salad, and everybody's asking for extra dressing on the side. Well, that extra dressing on the side, we don't account for it in our cost because our recipe says only 2 ounces. Okay, and so maybe we need to reevaluate our recipe and say our recipe is actually going to be 3 ounces of dressing. Okay, my recipe is 3 ounces. That's what my cost is based on. I'm still only going to give 2 ounces of solid dressing because Kenneth only likes 2 ounces. Caesar likes 2 ounces. Ray likes 4 ounces, right? So it'll all even out. If we cost it based on 3 ounces, then anytime someone gets that 2-ounce portion, we're going to make a little bit more money. And then if somebody had to give them 4 ounces because they want extra dress on the side, then it's all gonna even out. Okay, and we're gonna evaluate that process to see if we can lower our food costs. How are we doing on time? Okay, we got about 7 minutes. Why do you think it's important for us to be able to break apart the different categories where our food cost comes from?
Delineate where savings or otherwise gross expenses are being made.
Yeah, so we can look at our highest percentage, right? So our meat is our highest percentage category. Okay, so is there a way that we can maybe try to bring that down? Now, when we talk about cost savings ideas, we want to focus on cost savings, but not at the expense of quality. If we change our recipe so much to save money on the cost of the ingredients, our customers and our guests may not like it anymore. Okay, so we can't always just cut cost and the ingredient quality because that could change the relationship of what our guests think about the price that they're paying and the value that they're receiving. Okay, so keep that in mind as you're thinking about cost savings ideas. All right, couple of examples here. If my sales is $25,000 and I'm aiming for a 32% food cost, okay, I'm projecting a 32% food cost. So I'm using my triangle, cost, percent, sales. Which one am I looking for? I'm looking for the cost, right? So what do? Cover it up. And what's left over? 25,000 times 0.32. What is 25,000 times 0.32? Say it one more time.
8,000.
8,000. So that tells me my budget is $8,000 for food that year or that month or that period, that week, whatever that period of time is. Okay. $8,000 is my budget. So as I start ordering things, I'm going to realize how close I am getting to my budget. Okay. And now if I'm looking for sales, cost, percent, sales. If I'm looking for sales, I'm going to cover that up. And what's left over? Cost divided by percentage. I'm just going to go ahead and add that percentage sign, take away that percentage sign, add that decimal. So what is $3,250 divided by 0.29?
9,206.
9,200, 11,000, sorry, 11,000. 90 cents. Okay. So that means when that cash register at the end of that time period closes, I need to have $11,206.90 in my sales to maintain a 29% food cost. Okay. Last one. We're going to make it. Okay. This is a 2-step process. So when you go to do your homework, this is going to be important to come back and watch the last 5 minutes of this video because I'm going to walk you through this process. It's a 2-step process combining our increase of our budget and then using the triangle. So we first have to increase and then we use the triangle. Okay. So what is my sales number? If last period my food costs were 43,000, I'm going to increase my cost by 2.5%. And I still want to maintain a 30% food cost. Okay, so step one is we got to increase by that 2.5%. So $43,250. That's our starting last year's period. That's our historical data times 0.025. What do we get? Actually, let's do our shortcut times 1.025.
44,331.25 cents.
44,000. Say it again slowly for me.
331.
$331 and
25 cents.
25 cents. Thank you so much, Kenneth. All right. So that is my new increased expenses, my new increased food costs. Follow me so far? That's step number one. Step number two. We now are going to use the triangle. You notice how I draw my triangle? Every single time until I get used to it. Okay? Cost, percent, sales. I'm looking for sales. My cost now is $44,331.25. And I'm going to divide that by my food cost percentage of 30%. Okay? What do we get in the back?
147,000.
Say it one more time, real loud.
147,000.
Okay?
770. 83 cents.
83.
83.
Okay, cool. So those are sevens, not twos. Okay, so 147,770 and 83 cents. That is my new number for my sales. That's my new number that goes to the top that everything else gets subtracted from on my P&L, okay, as I'm budgeting. So I think that was the last slide. Oh, in the last 30 seconds that we have real quick, as we analyze, we have to assess the results and then we have to take corrective action, okay? So our food cost is way high. So what can we do to bring it down? We're going to look at this. Our sales, okay, we brought in an extra $100,000 in sales. That's awesome. Go us. Our food cost was actually down by 20,000. So that's good. We even saved money down there. Our labor cost was less than $20,000 less, right? So in all, our prime cost was pretty good. Okay. Let's do another example real quick. Our sales was the same. We made exactly what we thought we were going to do on our sales. The food and beverage, we spent $50,000 more than we budgeted, right? Actual. Our labor was exactly the same, which means really it was our food costs that threw us out of whack. Okay. And so we look at our prime cost, we aim for 61.5%. We actually had 65.2%. So that's 3.5%, 3 cents, 3.5 pennies on $1 million. It adds up to a bigger loss. Okay. And that's it. So we as managers have to figure out, we have to kind of become a detective. Why was our food cost $50,000 more? And then, oh yeah, I forgot that David's new and he doesn't understand the idea of FIFO. So he was kept making chicken salad and he would just put the new stuff in front of the old stuff. And then a month later, we find out and all that old stuff is expired. And so that was money that we spent on ingredients that we couldn't sell. All right. And so you have to become a detective to figure out why are these problems happening and then take those corrective actions. Okay. I'll give you one last example. I know I'm 1 minute over. But I'll give you one last example. When I was a server at TGI Fridays, my manager, Kristen, she was the dining room manager. When I started at TGI Fridays, I didn't eat a lot of steak. So I didn't know the difference between a rare, medium rare, medium well done steaks, right? And so when guests would order a steak, I would forget to ask them how they wanted their steak cooked. And so I'm at my computer and I'm like, Eduardo looks like a medium, or he looks like a medium rare, right? And then this guest gets it and it's wrong. And what do we have to do? We have to remake it, take it back to the kitchen. So now we've served 2 steaks, but we only brought in sales for 1. Or maybe even sales for 0 if we have to comp it, right? So that means I've served 2 and I brought in no money. And so Kristen took corrective action and she said, David, you are always forgetting this. You have like 4 remakes per shift on your steaks. So what did she do? She gave me this bright neon index card. And I taped it right on the inside of my server booklet, and it said meat temperature in big black letters. So as I'm writing the order and someone says steak, I'm like, oh, how do you want your steak cooked? Right? That corrective action then prevented those errors in the future. So we had to kind of get creative as a manager. All right. Thank you all so much. I'll post this recording on Canvas.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Have
for
a good
giving
week.
me an extra 3 minutes. I'll be out on Tuesday, either in person or online. Tuesday?
You mean Monday?
Oh, wait, this is Monday, Wednesday, right? I'll
Yep.
see you on Monday.
All right. Look forward to it.
Yes, sorry.
No worries.
I
Have a
will
good
make
day,
that
sir.
mistake many times. How's that pork butt going on the smoker?
Pretty good. So, I mean, it's got a long way to go.